Well, welcome, Andy, to Coracle. It's great to have you on this recording. These recordings go directly onto the Coracle laptops that are found in 90 prisons across the UK. So we're talking directly to people who are using access to digital education as a way of hopefully changing their future. And so, with that in mind, I wonder perhaps you could start off by telling us a bit about your story.
Yeah, of course. Just very briefly, I obviously my background really it is a massive gambling addiction. I served in the Navy for 13 years. I had some quite high profile jobs after that, and unfortunately resulted in committing fraud twice, convicted of fraud twice. I've served two sentences, and now I've been in recovery for close on 3 years, and now work within the recovery space, sort of, helping others to achieve the same, really.
And so, when you say in recovery, I mean, I think gambling addiction is a much under misunderstood issue, isn't it?
Yeah, massively. I think, you mentioned drugs and alcohol, and straight away there's services available. People understand it. There's some sympathy for it almost. Whereas with gambling, I think the stigma is massive. People just think, well, it's just stupid. Just stop. It's only money. What are you doing? And the reality is, if you look at substances, I create my own substance in my own mind. It's that dopamine dump, the buzz, the escape. And I think across all addictions, it's an escapism from things that have maybe gone on in the past. It's maybe an escape from what's going on in your mind. Um, so whatever substance you use or behavior, mine just happened to be gambling. So yeah, I think there is a lot of stigma around it, and what I want to do is break that stigma down. If you're listening to it, that listening to this, that it is real, it is an illness. It's very difficult to accept as an illness because it makes you sound, "Oh, I'm looking for something to blame." I'm not. It's a real mental health issue. It leads to anxiety, depression, and even suicide ideation. The rates of suicide up at 495 again last year.
Really, that's really sort of scary. And I think when you had your time, inside prison, was that the time that you really started to think, how can I change, the outcome? Is that was there a course that was available for you, or how did you get on that path to recovery?
Yeah, so I look at the first sentence. I thought that was my rock bottom. I thought I couldn't get any lower. Um, and I asked for help. I had a suicide attempt. And then talking to the psychologist afterwards, I, opened up about my gambling, asked for support, and all that was available was drug and alcohol support. I was told that gambling's a secondary addiction. Let's look at your alcohol. And I thought, I only use alcohol to drown out the problems with my gambling. So that cross addiction straight away, alcohol was what they were looking at concentrating on. It caused the anger, or it caused the violence that comes with it. So that's what the prison cared about. And I went away. I didn't let it beat me. I thought, right, I'll do some self help. I got some books out of the library. And I thought, I'll sign up for a distance learning course. And I carried out a level 2 and level 3 in counselling skills. But the reality was, I wasn't dealing with the underlying issues. Didn't even realise I had underlying issues at that point. And I could help others every day of the week, but just because you've got the knowledge doesn't mean you can help yourself. You need somebody else to be looking at what you're saying, deciphering what you're saying, and digging that little bit deeper than you really want to go. So looking at the second sentence, by the time I went in, I had completed a 14-week residential rehab with Gordon Moody, prior to sentencing. And so I went in with a completely different mindset, and I didn't mind being the one who stood out. Everybody thought I looked like a copper anyway, I was told, which always goes down well in prison. So, I had that stigma anyway. So I just thought, well, I'll add the gambling in, and I'll just bore people with my gambling talk. And actually, the governor picked up on it. The governor read my book, and all of a sudden, I was allowed to set up peer support groups on a Friday and carried out one-to-ones with people who wanted and reached out for that support. So I think, looking at we'll probably talk about it in a minute, but looking at the Coracle laptops, I had access to that for my distance learning. I was doing drug and alcohol counselling course. I done a project management course, and it was just I had it really to use as a word processing tool at first. But the reality was then during the quieter hours and maybe some of that boredom, I started clicking on the other courses that were available on there and
Okay.
started, selecting those. I knew people were struggling with certain things, and I'd invite them in, or invite them to use a laptop to do it. And I could just see, the impact that it was having on people. That just I've done something. I've actually, achieved something. So, and I think, so when we look at gambling, I think it could be a massive tool for somebody to maybe listen to this in prison and reach out themselves.
So do you think was there something about the accessing those courses in a peer sort of situation, peer led, rather than being told this is a course that you need to do for some specific reason? Do you think it was quite empowering to almost self-select from the library of courses that was available, and that had a positive impact on people?
Hmm. Yeah, I think 100%. I think I think anybody in life, if you're told to do something, there's a little bit of, resistance. I would have kicked back a little bit and thought, and also I think, the offender management unit do a great job, as in, looking at your offences and trying to reduce that risk. But I think sometimes they get me wrong, and they'll give me a course on something that is not really going to have the impact on me. Whereas being able to choose, well, I'm the only person really who knows what's going on in my head. So I'm the only person who knows whether that course that's on the Coracle laptop is going to be useful to me or no. And as I say, when it's peer led, I just think listening to somebody who's lived it, listening to somebody who's, lived those days of the dark days, rather than somebody telling you at this stage of the book, it says you should be feeling this or you should be doing this. So I'm not, wanting to dampen down the impact of psychologists and mental health workers. They absolutely have their role. I have my role as a peer worker, which is, to break that person down a little bit, just let them feel that they're trusted, let them feel that they can open up to you about anything. And then at that stage, maybe they go on to look at the deeper why. So I think Coracle does that. It just gets people thinking.
That's really interesting, and I think there's things in the newspaper at the moment in September, end of September, talking about this Texas style approach to sentencing. I don't know if you've been following this story, but the government is looking at whether sentences can be flexed, i.e., reduced, if people engage in more education. And we've certainly seen firsthand judges give sentence reductions for people coming along with a sort of armful of certificates they've done on Coracle. And actually, I'm wondering if people are self-motivated to find those courses through a peer-led group rather than the prison saying, this is the tick box list. This could be a very powerful way of easing some of the overcrowding.
Mm. Yeah, 100%. Because I think looking at it, there could be 10 of us jailed for fraud. You could have five that are absolutely, this is out of character and it's a one off and, something's happened in their life. If they've addressed that in their life, then what risk are they? If you've got somebody like myself, who that was their second time, maybe there's an escalation. It needs to be looked at that what is he doing himself to address this? I think it's far more powerful if I've gone to rehab off my own back, the 14-week rehab, continue to do self-development work with the education than it is somebody who's been forced onto courses. They, as you say, tick the box. Quite often the offender management unit will, reduce somebody's risk because they've been forced onto courses and they've just ticked the box and that's fine. Somebody like myself who's self-motivated doesn't maybe want to do their directed courses because I know they're not going to help me, but I've done 10 other courses that have really impacted me. They're not acknowledged within the probation service or prison service, but they've had far more impact.
That's so interesting, isn't it? Because I think you talk in your book as well about emotional dysregulation, misregulation as part of the problem, and therefore there's a strong link to neurodiversity, and of course, this is what the prison population is about, isn't it? It is, people have done bad things, but they're not bad people. It may be that misregulation, and I think this idea of being able to find something for yourself is very, very powerful. Um, I think the the other thing you talk about is the impact from a gambling point of view of how many other people it impacts. It's a very wide number, isn't it? And is that something that through counselling and through peer support you've been able to deal with, understanding the wider impact?
Yeah, it's very, very difficult to accept at the time. I think whilst you're in the madness of an addiction, it's very self-absorbing. You know, you just all you care about is that next fix. And I talk about sort of getting money and finding that buzz and escapism. That's all that dominates my mind. I'm not looking around me thinking how I've impacted others. There's maybe times after a loss and I'm sat on my own and that would come flooding in. But when we talk about the emotional, you know, misregulation or the high emotions, that's when they would kick in. So the way I deal with high emotions is to go and lose myself in my gambling again. You know, I could go and lose myself in alcohol. People would lose themselves in drugs. So it's about that cycle of, you've used, you've hurt people. You start thinking about those people. You can't deal with those emotions, so I'll use again. Whereas I think what therapy done and what rehab done and the work that I've done, it allows you to sit with that guilt, sit with that, and look at those people and actually look at the harm you've caused them. And not just look at it, but, try and address that. There's something within the 12 steps which is sweeping your side of the street. And as long as I've tried to make amends to those people and it's genuine, then I'm okay. It's up to them whether they accept that. It's up to them whether they try and support me or whether they walk away. And actually, the way I take that now is if they walk away, that's absolutely fine. I probably didn't need them in my life anyway. Those that have accepted it, stuck around, and can see the changes I'm making are my true people. They truly care about me. So yeah, I think emotions play a massive, massive part. If I feel them today, high emotions, I want to run away. I want to go and bury my head. What do I do today? Probably go for a walk or probably work, unfortunately, becomes a part of it. But yeah,
Well, I think this is for me one of the things that I'm really interested in is um, if you give access, if we give access to people to a wide range of course materials, different types of courses, when those heightened states are coming and you're banged up, you can't go for a walk in that situation. All you can do is get frustrated and angry, and all that pent up emotion can come pouring out. And I think the stories I've heard from people with a Coracle laptop who've used that as their escape is, right, I'm going to go and smash out a health and safety course or watch a video of someone talking about their story. Um, I think it's something that is very much misunderstood, and the power that we can offer.
yeah, I think you're absolutely right when you say you can't go for a walk. And I remember, the days of 23-hour bang up or whatever, and the frustration, anger that you feel. You've done it to yourself. I know I'm in there for a reason and everything else, but that doesn't, help you at the time. And I think then when people are let out of the cell and they maybe react and they may be angry and they maybe shout at an officer because they're frustrated at something, that's then just seen as, see, we told you he's aggressive. We told you he's violent. So it's, whereas whilst you're sat in a cell and I had the Coracle laptop, as you say, and I've got 2 hours to kill and I'm itchy or I might do a course that I see is completely random and not for me and not whatever. But by the time at the end of that short course or whatever, and you think, actually, I've just learned something that I didn't know before. The hours, 2 hours have gone, and actually I'm feeling a bit brighter, so it's, and then I've seen lads say, "Oh, I'm going to get education to print my certificates off," and you give someone a certificate, and it does straight away. It just shows, I don't know, it just shows an end result to something that I've achieved, something that I've done, something. So it has a lasting impact. It it helps at the time when you do the course. You feel a bit better after, and then you get the certificate printed off, and all of a sudden it's got 3 or 4 different impact points across that week or across a couple of weeks. So they're far more than just time killers. And as I say, I've done a couple of them. I think there was a facing up to conflict, or there was a conflict resolution. There was one, and I've taken so much from that. I even to this day, I had some conflict over a second-hand car I bought yesterday, and it's now, well, it's got a built-in paddling pool, let's say that. But I started going back quite aggressively via text and getting worked up, and all of a sudden there was a couple of points off that course that I just brought myself back down. I then texted him back, apologised, and he's now paying for the car to be done. So without those courses, without those, that I would have thought, no, it's just a menial course, or it's just, without that, that would have probably escalated further yesterday. So it does help people once you're back in the community.
I think that's fantastic. And look, the real key for me there is that you have done that course off your own bat. What you've done is you've applied for the laptop because you recognised it was going to help with your peer support group, but you've taken the opportunity. And I think that's the message I want to get out to so many other people is actually, if you can take advantage of this system, there is, like you just described so brilliantly, there's so many reasons why it's going to stand you in good stead going forwards. Well, Andy, it's a pleasure talking to you. Is there anything else that you sort of want to add about you? Because that's just been great to hear from you.
Yeah, no, as I say, it's been one of those lives that, at times people would look at and probably, um, be envious of. It's been one that has been very, very hidden. I kept my addiction hidden for so long, that people didn't know. And there will be people in prison today that are, maybe in, as I say, on a drugs charge or on something else, and they're quite happy to keep their gambling addiction hidden because it's maybe seen as a weakness. And I just want those people to understand that, you don't have to go and tell the world, but just tell someone, tell your offender manager, because they're looking for a cause to your, you know, behavior. They're looking at a cause to the crime. And they're probably scratching their heads thinking, why? Whereas once they know about your gambling, they can make those links to actually, okay, we can now help with this. Because with me, there was a lot of anger, but fraud doesn't bring about anger management courses or violence reduction courses. But there was a lot of anger and frustration in me that I was struggling to deal with. So it's just about being open and honest. It hurts sometimes and it's embarrassing and but you know what? Most people will go, fair play to you, let's help you. How can I help you? So yeah, it's just breaking down that barrier. And as I say, removing the mask that I wore for so many years. And there will be people in there today with masks on that are, acting the hard man. I'm this big I am. And you get behind your cell door and you're as broken as the next man. So it's about if everybody just went, "Do you know what, I'm a little bit broken," then we can help fix those. If you just go, "I'm okay, I'm the big I am," nobody can help you. So it's about asking for help and using the laptop.
Those are very wise words. Andy, thank you very much for talking to us. And
No,
let's
thank
hope
you,
that
James.
someone out there, you may be watching from your pad in any of the prisons in the UK. And I hope this has made a bit of a difference to how you might go and look at some of those other courses. Thank you very much.
Thanks, James.